Hello, everyone. This is William del Pilar, and welcome to your Thursday evening conservative talk. This is Fired Up, and we got a heck of a show for you. Did you know that an individual from the October 7th Hamas massacre that happened over there in Israel, if some of you don't remember the date, was living here in Louisiana? What does that say about our vetting process that we're actually allowing terrorists to live here freely? Speaks volumes. We're also going to talk about my favorite topic that I have documented here from day one, and that is more election integrity issues. And is the media, the mainstream media? I'm not talking Town Hall. I'm not talking Breitbart. I'm not talking Megyn Kelly, Shapiro, Tucker Carlson. I'm talking CBS, CNN. Are they pushing back and calling Democrats out? That's only one half of the story we're going to get into. The other half is the progressive side went ballistic just because a reporter chose to counter with the truth. They didn't like that. And we've got some other stories on tap. But before we get to that, do not forget to bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. Follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, and Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. Quick note on that. We're going through some internal changes here at Grumblings Media, and our team that puts all this stuff on Apple, Spotify, and Pandora. They were about a couple weeks behind in getting that turned over. So you can catch us for sure on YouTube and Rumble. And that's video. You can see my beautiful mug as it stands. Anyway, and with that, let me bring my main man, the G-Man.
Hey, it's still me.
Yeah, you're looking pretty sharp there. Got the nice shirt. So to let you guys know, I was like, hey, G, we got to talk. That's you. You're looking sharp with the beard. You look completely different. You actually look kind of playboyish. It's funny what it
do. No comment.
No comment.
Appreciate the compliment, though.
Let's get right on. Geez, a married man with kids. Let's get right on into it. The Louisiana resident is charged for his alleged role in the Hamas October 7th attacks. He's obviously a Louisiana man. He faces U.S. federal charges for allegedly participating in this attack on Israel. Gee, how did a person allegedly linked to a major terrorist attack bypass U.S. immigration checks, and how was he able to settle in Louisiana?
How? 2 words: President Biden and her husband as well. They basically removed all immigration checks and all that. So there was like almost obviously zero vetting, because this guy must be put on a list somewhere, as opposed to the 9/11 hijackers who, were known, but they didn't really have any prior history with the country. So this guy obviously had some ties to the attack, because his phone pinged. I know you're going to bring that up, but the phone pinged, and he wasn't supposed to be in that area, but phone pinged right around where the massacre happened. So it was President Biden saying, we don't need to do background checks on people coming in. Let them all come in. Let them all come in. Right, that's what happened. Right.
Terrible. They branded President Trump a racist for, remember, his first term, for wanting to start vetting these individuals. And I got to tell you, America, I'm not an immigrant per se. Neither is my dad, even though we have all the check boxes. But my dad's Puerto Rican, came from literally a third world country. As that comedian said, we're a landfill over there. Technically, Puerto Rico has a landfill problem. But that said, also from Panama, which is very cosmopolitan. And when you hear that term cosmopolitan, talking about these types of countries, what they mean is very Americanized, very modernized. And but I can tell you this: there's a lot of danger. There's a lot of not Noriega, Torrijos. Omar Torrijos showed the United States of America when they were going back and forth back in the 40s and up through the 50s. I'm going to say through the 60s, rather, in the 60s, how easy it is to create a terrorist scenario. Because one time he called the base up, had one of his minions call the base up and tell the Americans, think there's a bomb here. Sure enough, there was. So to have these individuals to be able to come into this country, as G said, unvetted, because of Democrat policies. And I'm not going to lie here. When it's both sides, G and I will bring that up. Hey, it's both sides. But this is literally a Democrat talking point to have open borders. The damage this individual could have done had he looked towards this country. And this individual's name was Mahmoudine Yaqub Muwadi. He's 33. He's armed himself. He was joining the paramilitary faction, collaborating with Hamas during the attack that killed, obviously, approximately 2,000 people and saw over 250 hostages taken. Now, the FBI says that is it Mutadi or Mufadi? Muadi. I guess I may have misspelled it here. Acted as an operative for the National Resistance Brigade, and they are organized armed fighters meant to infiltrate Israel. And he requested rifles, bulletproof vests, and ammunition. And as G pointed out, his mobile device was tracked near the Kibbutz Kfar Aza site. And that's the site of a massacre just hours after the assault began. So, G, obviously Trump has closed the border. But two questions here. Threefold, actually. What message does this send to Americans about the reality of national security threats? But more importantly, this story kind of went under the radar. No major media outlets reported on it. So not only are they playing ideological politics with the news, they are truly wishing death upon us by not informing us of what happened here. They are putting ideology before giving us national security type news. Your thoughts on that?
Well, what message does it send? One, why was he here? I mean, did all of a sudden after October 7th, he decided, you know what? I like the whole democracy and freedom of speech thing. Let's go to a country that's majority Christian. Let's do that. Like, no, he was here for a reason. And it wasn't to get a job at the local Popeyes, Louisiana Popeyes chicken restaurant or wherever he was working. I don't know exactly what the restaurant was. But he wasn't here just to get a minimum wage fast food job. He was here for a reason. So here's the other question: who else is here, and why are they here as well? So
exactly,
I hope to God nothing happens, but it sounds like the FBI, CIA, they're both on it, and they're going to round up people that slipped through the cracks in the last 4 years. It's terrible that this happened, but and obviously allegedly, right? He has not gone through a court of law or anything, but I think they got something on this guy that's pretty convincing.
It's in my notes here. I have local communities, especially in Lafayette. They're reeling from the news that someone facing such charges could work and reside among them. And we've been hit close to home. We had the Jewish rabbi murdered here in San Diego and Poway, which is very near to us. In Riverside, you had the Islamic terrorists there some years back. So this is devastating news because the lives these individuals could take. And let me inform you guys an ugly truth that you won't hear Democrats or libertarians talk about. When our borders were wide open, I want to say going back to Biden for sure, but who knows how far back. Part of the strategy for the bad actors, when I was a kid, the bad actor was Russia, but today's bad actors, China, Iran, any Hezbollah, those type, Iran-backed factions, they saw the open borders. We talk sex trade, we talk drugs, but what we don't talk about is the potential for high-risk terrorism to be brought across the borders. And the fact that you're not vetting the borders at that time meant that this was any bad actor's dream. And I think Trump's going to stop it. Now, law enforcement and policymakers are going to be facing increasing pressure to tighten the background checks and close loopholes around visa and residency. I mean, that's what Trump ran on. But heaven help us if something happens, G. Do you think what Trump is doing, we know what he's doing is good, but do you think it's going to continue? I mean, we're saying over the next 2 to 3 administrations, especially if a Democrat-led presidency comes into play.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking about it, I was thinking what led us to this position in the first place under Biden, right? And the first Trump term, I think even a lot of Republicans thought this, maybe it was a fluke that he won. And there was such TDS that once Biden got in, they basically went all the way to the other side, right? Just with the whole transgender stuff, open the borders, let anyone come in. America's your oyster, telling the whole world that. So I have to wonder this time. We know a Democrat will become president again eventually. We don't know when. What are they going to take the lesson from Trump being reelected, saying that those policies failed, or is their TDS going to basically they're going to double down on it and throw everything wide open again? Uh, I don't know the answer to that question. The way Democrats are talking right now, and I'm talking about the leadership, they are saying that illegal immigration is okay. ICE is this equivalent as a Gestapo, and I mean, you just go on down the line. Uh, their their approval rating is in the tank because Americans are saying we don't like what you're saying. It's just anti-Trump,
Correct.
and Americans are not agreeing with that. So I think the salvation of the Democrat Party will be, I hate to say it, a guy like Bill Clinton who says, "Hey, look, uh, Reagan had a point," and he wins his party over to be more conservative.
It's going to take an Obama type cult figure, or in his day, a Clinton type cult figure, to say that to begin any change. Because right now, the reason you can't say that is because the Republican Party has no voice. So look, before I close this out, based on what G said, I'm sorry, I said Republican Party. The Democrat Party has no voice. There is no leadership. Everybody says AOC, Mamdani, that's a face. That's what Republicans are painting as a
We
face.
can only dream.
Yeah, but that's what Republicans are painting as a face for political purposes because we gain from that. Because the truth of the matter is, nationwide, that ideology is only bound to large urban areas, Chicago, New York City, San Francisco, places like that. So they don't have a leader right now. So there's nobody to go, this is wrong. We got to stop this right now. And that's why you're seeing the disgusting takes like on Halloween on the Charlie Kirk Masters or the King No King's Day on the Charlie Kirk. And I bring that up to make the point. If the Democrats had a serious leader who go, no, you don't do that, that would resonate. You don't think when Obama said something that did not resonate, especially with Black Americans, but literally all Democrats, it resonated and they followed through. So until they get a leader, let's pray that this is a one and done. But statistically, that's probably not the case. And the truth of the matter is this story is a wake-up call for Americans. It's plain and simple. Look, if a guy involved in a terror attack could slide right into a small town here, we've got serious gaps in our policies. We kind of knew that. But fraudulent visas shouldn't be an open door pass for anyone, let alone someone linked to Hamas. But that's what Democrats are pushing for. Our security checks, they do need tightening. Trump is doing that, but they need more and fast. This isn't just a headline from overseas. It's our reality. The bottom line, our own backyard isn't immune, and it's time we stop acting like it is. All right, G, let's talk about my favorite topic, election integrity concerns. Non-citizen voting and ballot security issues continue to surface nationwide. And people, I always bring this up for a simple reason. It's happening. There's no debate on that, despite the fact, and this is how the debate goes. There's no voter fraud. There's no this. And then when you bring up a few cases, oh, that's just isolated. That's the go-to answer. But it's not isolated. We just don't know how big it is because it's never been tracked. So election security keeps making the headlines. And the stories we're going to talk about here, 3 of them, that's just the tip of the iceberg, especially when you go back to what I've documented over the lifespan of this podcast. They should be making headlines, but they're not. They're buried by the mainstream media. But there's growing evidence, and it does nothing but highlight the vulnerability of our U.S. election processes, ranging from non-citizen voter registration, and I'm being polite, it's illegal alien voter registration, to ballot insecurity issues. G, Ohio's case, 1,000 non-citizen voters, as they put it, were found to be registered, and they're saying that some of them voted. It's one of the largest registration exposures recorded. Do you think there are worse cases to be found? And do you think the DOJ involvement in this can maybe start to curb this with our own homegrown California Harmeet Dillon pushing some of this stuff?
Do I think there's worse cases to be found? Let's remember, Ohio is a red state. And
Oh,
so we know that they're clamping down on it, but it's going to be found in every state. But think of a blue state like California. When I go to renew my license, they ask me, do I want to register to vote? I think it asks everyone that. I don't think your immigration status matters, right? Because it didn't ask me for my immigration status. I was applying for my license. Illegal immigrants can get licenses here, and it then asked me, "Do you want to register to vote?" And then I said no because I didn't want to put my I'm already registered to vote. But I didn't want to put my information in that system. So I think California is probably a cesspool of people who are not allowed to vote, whether they're immigrants that are not citizens or they're illegal immigrants. Neither can vote. You have to be a citizen. And it
right.
just reminds me of the time I hear that I think it's like 1 out of 2 men think about the Empire of Rome and why it fell like every other day. It's some weird statistic like that. But when you go back to the Roman Empire, one of the emperors, I think in the early 300s or late 200s, decided, hey, let's let everyone who's part of this empire become a citizen. That includes all the Franks and the Germans, Germanic tribes, I should say, not the Germans, but the Germanic tribes. They all became citizens, and it
Right.
just watered down the notion of what a Roman citizen was, right? So we're headed down the same path. I don't think we should be that stringent that we don't allow other people to become citizens, but this is not the way to do it. The rule is citizens vote. And I think I think Harmeet and her team of people can put a dent in this, but I think it's way more widespread unless we force some kind of voting rights law that says, look, you need to present your ID which proves you're a citizen when you go to vote. I think that's fair. And just give everyone who is a citizen a free ID. So no longer
Right.
is there a poll tax, even if it's $10 to get an ID. Look, you're paying zero, you get your ID for free. And now we know who's voting and that you're allowed to vote, and your vote should be tied to your name. I believe there's probably going to be disagreement there. We want voting to be anonymous, but I think it should be tied to who you are, so that we know what vote you casted, and if there's an issue, we can remove that vote.
I agree. I agree. And for the audience, there were 1,145 non-citizens that were registered on voter rolls after checking the Bureau of Motor Vehicle Records. This happened here in California as well. And this is, see, no matter what they want to tell you, I personally do not think an illegal alien should have any rights in terms of being able to work here. They're taking jobs, and it's not the jobs that y'all want to say, Democrats want to say that we won't do. One, that's a fallacy. Mark Levin proved that years ago in breaking down the numbers. But two, the Iowa $300,000 board school board supervisor.
Superintendent
Yeah,
of a school district.
superintendent. And it just came out. I didn't put it down, but a couple of days ago, I read some woman had a job as a teacher. These are not jobs that we don't want to do, So giving them the ability to vote, and then Democrat and blue states, even red states, as G said in Ohio, going because they're Governor Weiner, I can't remember, DeWine or something like that. He was actually what you would call center left. He was more rhino than he was actual conservative. And what happens is you get ballots sent to people who are registered. They don't properly check to make sure if they're citizens when they go vote. And that's a problem. So not some non-citizens actually tried to vote. And all these cases have been referred to the Department of Justice. And we talked about this last week or a couple of weeks ago. Minnesota has a driver's licenses for all law. And that lets all undocumented immigrants get licenses that look identical to citizens. And these are valid voter ID. And Minnesota's election director admitted that these IDs can't be flagged at polling places. Now, they say lawmakers in Minnesota are scrambling to close a risky loophole, but I wouldn't guarantee it, but I would pretty much say, statistically speaking, Tim Walz will take his sweet time to sign anything the legislature passes. Now, there were also 300 mail-in ballots for a special election that disappeared. We talked about this too. I'm bringing these back up to go. This isn't a one and done in Ohio. There's a track record, and this is just over the month of October. And I bring this up because in 2025, in a couple weeks, a lot of states are going to have elections for whatever is happening in their states. And over 300 mail-in ballots for a special election disappeared from a homeless encampment. What they were doing in a homeless encampment is beyond me. Now, officials launched investigations. These investigations will go the way of Joy Reid's homophobic take she made on her blog that MSNBC was investigating, and we never learned what happened. It's a Democrat-led state. Gee, how much confidence do you have that these investigations will take place in here, California, and that Tim Walz will be anxious to sign laws to tighten up election security?
Yeah, you don't even have to ask the question. I think it's obvious, zero. But here's the difficulty, Democrat. I was watching this thing on CNN. Democrats have a really hard situation to defend, right? So they're trying to claim that there's zero fraud, right?
Right.
And so I saw on CNN this. I think it was Scott Jennings saying, "Well, they found a ballot in whatever state it was, and I forget the exact details." And she goes, "Oh, one. That's you found one." It's like, okay, look, Democrats, you have to defend the idea that there's zero fraud, and Republicans are saying where there's one, there's probably two, and where there's two, there's probably three, and where there's three,
Right.
there's probably a million. I mean, it's either zero or non-zero, and so the Democrats have to fall back to a position of, okay, well, it's not big enough to influence elections, but we've seen presidential elections hang on 500 votes.
That's right.
Right, hanging chads
right.
and all that. So there's questions around that vote counting process. But so yeah, I think blue states are riddled with issues, and they're not going to fix them because it plays to their benefit. It plays to their benefit because blue states. You look at, okay, so what is California trying to do? Trying to make it an all Democrat state, right? Even though 40% of us are conservative, it's going to be blue all the way. Every single gerrymandered line, if Prop 50 passes, everyone's going to be a Democrat. And so people, illegal immigrants, they're going to come in. They don't care Republican, Democrat. They care who's handing me money, who's giving me free food, who's giving me free healthcare, who's giving me free tuition, which citizens don't get, or even legal immigrants don't get, but illegal immigrants get free tuition to these colleges. That's what they look at. And then that's how they, if they vote, if they commit fraud, they're going to vote for the one who, you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Exactly. All right, let's close this one out here. It's happening there. Look, people, here's the thing. These aren't just news stories. They're warning signs. And look, baby, they're flashing bright as bright can be. And let me remind you, Democrats, of something. Y'all were talking 2024. Where did those 12 or 16 million votes that Biden got in 2020? We need an investigation. Oh, yeah, we do. Because you'll find out those votes likely never existed. Non-citizen on voter rolls, that's now a fact. That shouldn't happen, though, period. Ballots swiped from homeless camps? How does that slip through the cracks? Minnesota licensing loophole just hands the keys over to election chaos, which the mainstream media and Democrats will deny despite the volume of evidence. If the system isn't built for these threats, how can voters trust the results? They're not, as I just said, in 2024, and obviously we all know 2020. So fix the hose and show the work and how you fix the hose. Stop denying it. However, we know that's not what progressives want. They fight this every step of the way. But our history has shown voter fraud has been here from day one. And as Americans, we deserve more than just a shrug of the shoulders, and we'll look into it. We want, and now we should be demanding action. All right, G, let's get into some
one last word that just came to mind. You said Biden got 12 million more votes than, the Messiah, Obama.
Yeah.
And those same 12 million people could not show up to make history to elect a woman of color. That's interesting. Go ahead.
Next back in the 80s, things that make you go, All right, let's go to some fun stuff. CBS scraps race and culture and faces blowback over the layoff fallout. So CBS shut down. We talked about this last week. Barry Weiss was hired. She's what you call a center left individual. She's not conservative. Don't go thinking that. I'm sick and tired of people saying she's conservative, and she's 1,000% pro-Jewish, which is supposedly one reason. That doesn't bother me. You can't fault. I always tell people, be proud of your heritage. But the fact that she's not conservative and people think she is does bother me. But regardless, she was brought in there to begin cleaning up. Last week, our peer Annette Ross, and I talked about how she's going to be set up to fail. It's just too big, too much power. Well, we saw a little bit of Annette and I were wrong, because what happened here is CBS is eliminating its race and culture reporting division. That was just done this past week, and immediate layoffs were announced. Several CBS shows were canceled alongside staff reductions, and it's part of her job in the broader newsroom overhaul for that Barry Weiss is beginning to implement, and it's marking a fundamental editorial shift. Now, the move reflects a growing trend of legacy media organizations streamlining operations and reassessing specialized teams. So, G, is dismantling DEI-focused divisions like race and culture, is that a practical newsroom reset, or is it a step back from true progress on bias and inclusion in the media?
Look, we're talking about CBS. So CBS, let's think about. I forget the guy's name, but he interviewed Kamala Harris. Remember that
I forget
journalist?
his name.
Yeah,
I'll find out while you talk, though.
yeah. But so he was interviewing Kamala Harris, and he asked a question about, I believe it was Israel and Gaza, and she gave this long word salad answer, and then they cut, I think, a minute and a half so she could just give a 15-second concise answer. And I believe they also shuffled some parts of the interview around to make her sound a little more serious and intellectual. So Trump sues them, and now CBS, I think, sitting here going, "Wait a minute, let's we're losing viewership, we're losing lawsuits. Maybe we should just try to be tough on both sides, right? Because they're always going to be tough on Republicans. So let's just be tough on Democrats too." And you're going to talk about it here in a second. But Morgan Brennan, I watched her interview. Man, she went hard after Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm sitting there going, "Okay, well, I respect this interview. This is a good interview." Although I think she really could have put the screws to him, but she did pull back a little bit. Uh, so I do think it is a way to get people to watch again. I think in the end,
we're going to talk about that, G. So hold that thought.
yeah,
But
okay.
I just want to get your focus on the firing. So to move forward on this is Trey Sherman. He's a black associate producer for CBS Evening News. Went public on TikTok and Instagram saying that only producers of color were let go from his team, while white producers were reassigned. And obviously the left is saying, "Hey, that's racism, that's racism." And CBS issued an official statement denying any discriminatory intent. My take on it, before I get yours, is the division was all people of color. Human resources handles these type of issues if they come up. So of course there's going to be people of color. It's a division that was hired not for merit but for gender and color and to be politically correct at the height of DEI. So these people were not replacing anybody. They're not irreplaceable. Others with more seniority, more qualifications were already there. But isn't this, G, how the false narratives get going and stay in front and center?
Yeah. I mean, people forget the law of numbers, right? If okay, so a few years back, my company laid off the outsourced software team that we had hired,
Well, hold on.
and so you can say, "Whoa, everyone we fired was Indian." then, and then about 10 years later, different company, they're Taiwanese people. And 100% of the people that we let go were all Taiwanese. Man, we must hate those people too.
Yeah.
No, it just goes to, okay, if that's what your preference in hiring is, when you go to lay off, it's going to be the same thing. But here's the other part of it is, if someone's hired because of their skin color, right? And I don't know that at CBS that this happened, but you can maybe guess that it probably did if they hired based on DEI. But if you hire them because of their skin color and they're not that good, and I don't care what skin color you're talking about, they're not that good. In the end, you go, you know what? When we had to cut people, we got to let you go. You just don't know how to do the job. Oh, is it because I'm Indian? You're firing me because I'm Indian. No, I'm
And
firing you because you're no good.
exactly. And here's the other thing. These are union-led organizations, meaning the people are represented by unions. And what Trey is conveniently forgetting is in unions, 99%, if not all of them, you keep your job based off seniority. And the people with the least time there are the first ones gone. This was what 2022 when I said this. This division did not start until 2020, right around there. So they had no seniority.
Yeah, tenure is the term, but yes.
Yeah, so journalist organizations and advocates for DEI and media, they're voicing concern and called for further transparency from CBS. Gee, how transparent can CBS get?
I don't know.
I mean, I really don't. And other networks and corporations are reevaluating or they're dissolving similar DEI focused units. Now critics are saying that these units were always intended more as PR and risk management than genuine transformative inclusion efforts, prompting questions about the future and effectiveness of identity driven divisions. Now, what that means is they're like, well, what's the purpose of these people? They're just there for one reason, so what's their future as companies downsize or even if they grow? They need their money to be put to better uses. So, for example, on CBS, Paramount Plus is not making money. They gave Taylor Sheridan hundreds of millions of dollars, and he's keeping subscribers there, but they're not growing their subscriber base at Paramount like they want. This is money that could be used to go there. Oh, William, it's only a few $1,000,000. Are you kidding me? That's the common answer. It's only this, it's only that. Money matters. That's a few extra hires here or there. That's more money to put marketing. That's a lot of things that you can do. Why? Because they're not paying one person a few million. They can literally form out a lot of work with a few $1,000,000. Your final thoughts before I close it out, G?
No, I mean, again, if you just think about what a CBS is, it's most likely mostly a left wing organization.
Yep.
And they say when Democrats have hard times, I'm talking about the leadership, they eat their own, and this is what's happening there. Is they're sitting there going, well, we got to cut, and who we got to cut? We got to cut people who can't perform, and apparently it's disproportionately people of color, or at least the claim is that's the
Exactly.
case. So, uh, they say when you trade on margin in the stock market, it doubles or triples your losses or your earnings when the stock market goes up, but does the same thing and wipes you out really quickly on the way down. So this is I view it very similar to that.
Exactly. So let's get real, people. These layoffs hit the quote race and culture unquote division hardest. So naturally, people of color were most affected. That division was built for DEI optics. We have nothing against these individuals. In fact, we root for every individual. Look at G, he's Indian, I'm Latino. Okay, I don't look it, I admit it. But our point is, our whole families have been built around what is termed and deemed the minority. We want the best for everybody, but we don't agree with DEI. And even worse, when people get hired just for the optics of DEI. That's largely based on identity, not merit. And when corporations set up these units, it's about quieting outrage and checking boxes. It's not about work that HR couldn't already do. So now with media companies moving on, of course these jobs are first on the chopping block. It was inevitable. If hiring for skin color is considered racist, then seeing those same hires go isn't suddenly scandalous. It's the fallout from a system set up for appearances. And now CBS is facing the music after being bought out. So the truth of the matter, G, is I do wish these people the best. And I hope they can learn from this. And what hurts me, because I have friends who are Black. I grew up in the South. We moved here. And I've, not recently, but over the years, I don't know if they hired me because I'm Black and they're trying to fill a quota. That's got to be one of the most devastating things you can face when you're a hardworking individual and you want to be recognized for merit, not a quota. So that's why I hope this goes away, because everybody deserves the opportunity to live their dream in America through hard work and merit. And people, I'll tell you this: my head got so big it wouldn't fit on this screen. When I built and sold my small business, because I had lived the American dream, and I was so proud of that. It's a joyous feeling you get, and I wish that for everybody. All right, G. Now let's have some fun. Media pushback. Is it really? I don't know. We're going to talk about it. We're going to find out. CBS and CNN challenge progressive narratives. So major media outlets, okay, I'm lying, CNN and CBS, just two of them, but they seem to be pushing back against some prominent progressive figures, holding them accountable and challenging misleading or partisan claims on the air. Gee, let's actually start with a video here. This one is of Margaret Brennan, interviewing Hakeem Jeffries. Let me know if you can hear it.
I want to ask you about something you said. You said Democrats, there are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You said that back in January. But recently, you've been using the term rigged elections in reference to the upcoming midterms. Democrats were appalled when President Trump used language like that. How do you justify using that now? Doesn't that undermine faith for voters? You need to show up.
No,
all right, G, before he responds, when I first saw just that scene, I was like, what the hell? Holy mackerel. I was blown away. What were your initial thoughts with Margaret, who's a beautiful woman, smart, sassy, serious. She's everything you want out of a journalist, but so far left, nobody had respect for her. So I was like, holy mackerel. Look at her now.
I was like, did I accidentally tune to Fox News? That was my first thought.
All right, let's keep going.
I've been using that term in the context of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps in a partisan fashion all across the country in order to rig the midterm elections and deny the ability of the American people to actually decide who should be in the majority as it relates to the House of Representatives.
You know, Democrats are also going through.
All right, so I want to give Hakeem Jeffries some credit here. He came back with what you call, he wasn't like some Democrats that you see, like Bernie Sanders or AOC or Jasmine Crockett. When they get pushed back, they start screaming and ranting. He came back with a good answer, but real quick, G, hearing him talk, he just doesn't strike me as a leader. Yeah. Well, Margaret, it's like, oh, and that's not on him. Nobody controls their voice. But your quick thoughts on Hakeem Jeffries there.
No, I mean, okay, so this is an interview where she's coming across pretty hot right here, and I'm talking like pretty intense. And so I think he's just, maybe that surprised him. That was my first thought. I think he was surprised by the intensity at which she came after him. But I've seen him at other places where he's speaking at rallies, and he comes across, I don't know, a little more unhinged, or for Democrat leadership, that's leadership, quote unquote leadership. But
that's a rally, though. They're expected to be like that. That's my whole issue here is he wasn't shocked. He wasn't thrown off. He was able to counter. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I give him props to that. He
maintained his cool. Yes.
But he did his voice. I'm like, oh, God. It's like Rosie, what's that actress? Rosie, it's like drives me nuts. All right, let's keep going.
Democrats are also going through gerrymandering and redistricting.
No. Well, Democrats are going to push back aggressively to make sure that we have fair maps across the country, not partisan gerrymandering, which Republicans have initiated in state after state after state.
Again, Hakeem did well with his comeback. He countered her pretty well. But the story here is how she was. What happened to you, G?
I'm here.
No, it's not that. It's you disappeared on me. You're in the corner.
No.
Nope. All right, that'll have to do for right now. Okay, so is this sudden media toughness toward progressives, is this a real shift, or is this just an isolated incident for ratings and a short-term scenario?
I think it's the latter, and I think for CBS it might be a longer-term shift. It will last beyond the Trump years, just because I think they've been beaten down so hard. But I know we're talking about the media bias, but Hakeem Jeffries, you gave him praise for coming back with a good comeback. But the reason why this is happening in the red states is because if you look at the Northeast states, they're solidly blue. even though 45% of them vote Republican, but they're all Democrat representatives to House of Representatives. So in states where you can do it, Republicans are following that playbook. So, you can do this. That's what's happening. I agree with Hakeem Jeffries. That's happening in the red states. But so going back to the bias, absolutely. Like, I think at CBS, this is here to stay. MSDNC, or what is it going to be called now? They're never going to change. That is a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party. So I'm not going to see any reasonable change there at all.
Okay, so G, let's say CBS creates this change to CNN slowly. We're going to talk about CNN and Jasmine Crockett in a minute. But what does this mean for the Democrats and how they shape their message? So, for example, Republicans are always – we talked about this a few podcasts ago. You weren't there. This was with Dennis Brennan, great guest. And he brought up a great point, how Trump's acolytes, they don't allow the journalists to create the narrative. If, for example, J.D. Vance, when I can't forget, I forget the lady who said, well, it's only a few apartment buildings that the gangs were taking over. And he's like, do you hear yourself? He completely changed the tone. So what about Democrats? Most of them aren't savvy, not because they're dumb, not because they're idiots, not because they can't handle it. It's because there's a reason you want your politician to go to a lot of debates, to get a lot of scrutiny, to do town halls, because it trains them to be quick with the answer. Democrats don't have that going for them. So how's this going to affect their messaging if CBS, which is one of their biggest allies, and even CNN to an extent, start to push back?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sharpen them. They've got to come back with better answers. And this is where I thought Margaret Brennan could have been. I mean, basically what I just did, right? I said, well, the Northeast is solidly blue, and the Democrats have been gerrymandering those districts for decades. She could have asked that question, and I think she should have, but she pushed back hard enough, but not to the intensity I would have liked. But it will sharpen their message. They'll say, oh, that's a good point. Let's think of a better answer to that. Because look, these Sunday shows, I mean, what is it, like 5% of the population watches it? You're talking 95% don't. And maybe they'll watch it on YouTube. But I think most people watch it with their favorite podcaster taking out a clip like us saying, look at this and look at the answer. We're talking about the media bias, but we could have done a whole clip on Hakeem Jeffries ignoring the gerrymandering, that's a hard word to say, gerrymandering that the Democrats have done in many of these states for decades.
Right. Well, let's go on to Jasmine Crockett. This one's a little bit nuanced. You really got to pick up on it. And this one here is with Caitlin Collins, who used to work at the Daily Caller, a conservative. When she was young, she was on Fox News at times, young. And then she sold out. She saw the big check. Everybody, doesn't matter who we are, G, we all have that line in the sand, who knows where it's at for anybody. Everybody's line is different. But I think she saw those big CNN dollars and crossed that line. But anyway, this is Caitlin Collins with Jasmine Crockett. Give me a thumbs up if you hear it.
Do you believe this will be the week that Congress comes to an agreement here?
I have no idea. I mean, you started off talking about the fact that the president is in Japan. The president.
Okay, I'm sorry, G. I had to stop it there. What do you know? Give me I'll take this for $1,000, Alex William. What's the first thing you noticed about Jasmine Crockett?
Oh, I mean, I don't think she's dressed like a congresswoman. I don't know, but
to me, she looks beautiful there. I'll be honest. She looks like she's a beautiful woman there. But my point is,
I just expect
she's talking eloquently.
I just expect like suit coats or something like that, right? A pantsuit or whatever. But
she's talking eloquently. When she gets into a black audience or at a rally, and she was brought up in upper income, proper schools. That's how she normally talks. But and it's not just because she's black. Hillary did it, Biden did it, Obama's done it, and we all saw Kamala in her 6 dialects. on the campaign trail.
You mean
know,
Chameleon Harris?
Yes,
Not Kamal.
she's
Chameleon
talking
Harris.
eloquently. I didn't understand what you meant there. And that's the reason I bring that up is people don't let politicians play you. Just because you're black doesn't mean they're gonna relate or give you what you want because you're black. A black man or black woman will sell out a black person as quickly as a white man or white woman will sell out a white person as a Latino. Well, I've been burnt by Latinos. So anybody will sell anybody out. So it's just an interesting for you to know and understand how politicians work. All right, let's get back to it.
President has time to do everything but what he needs is in Japan. The president has time to do everything but what he needs to focus on. In fact, we heard the press secretary say that his main priority is the ballroom that no one asked for, the ballroom that requires him to destroy historic pieces of the White House. And so it doesn't seem like he's interested.
And that context of the comment from Caroline Leavitt, she was asked if the president was working on any other renovations when it came to the White House, and she was saying his focus was the ballroom. But to your point.
Okay, so what she said, see, you had to kind of listen to it to catch what she was saying. So what Jasmine Crockett was doing was putting the complete blame on Trump. That's his biggest priority is the ballroom, blah, 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 and blaming him for everything. He's not even here. He's in Japan. And Caitlin Collins came back and said, no. She was asked what are his other priorities that he's working on. And she said the ballroom is a priority for him, meaning on top of all the other things they're doing. So, gee, that is truly unexpected. Let's take it from a different tack. We've been talking about the big picture. What about from these individuals, from Caitlin Collins and Margaret Brennan? Do you think they enjoy doing this? Do you think they want to do this? Or do you think they have their hands tied and they know if I want to be here a year from now, I got to do this? Because for the audience, Dickerson, I forget his name. I think it's Eric Dickerson, the 60 Minutes or the CBS News, one of the co-hosts, is leaving at the end of the year. I don't know if he's being forced out or if he's choosing to leave. But do you think they're getting that message, or do you think it's just, hey, this is my job?
Well, I think if you go back to the 2024 election, I will say Morgan Brennan, or is it Margaret Brennan? Margaret Brennan. So she hosted one of the debates with Trump. Well, hosted the debate with Trump and Kamala, right? And so I think there were allegations that, well, not allegations. It was, everyone saw it. They challenged Trump and they never challenged Kamala, right? So Trump would give an answer. And I think it was 3 or 4 times they were like, no, that's not true. We're going to fact check you. And so I also watched another one with Caitlin Collins having a town hall with Trump. So it was Trump with the voters. And I believe they were GOP voters, right? So it's not just every voter. It was the GOP voters. This was 2023. So this is a year before the election. And she was so vicious on Trump. She kept going after him, challenging everything he said, interrupting him. I mean, it was bizarre. So I bring up those 2 examples because now they saw that none of that worked. None of their, I'm gonna claim that they were trying to be activists, right? Maybe this is their viewpoint. They're trying to push it, and being hard on Trump to get Kamala to win the election. I'm going to say that they probably saw that didn't work. And, in the end, your credibility is on the line, and you have to go back to just go, okay, I need to be a good journalist. I need to be tough on both sides. I need to be seen tough. And I think now you're seeing that they're acting that way. Now, Caitlin Collins, I've seen some other clips in the past few weeks where she has challenged Democrats. So good for her. I think that's good. I just think she needs to drop the whole, like, I'm going to interrupt you, not let you finish act. Like, ask the tough questions, but be respectful of both sides.
You mean like I do to you? Shut up, G, I'm talking. So, G, but hold on, though. Will legacy outlets like CBS and CNN, will they stick to this? Is this their new, well, let's throw CNN aside right now. But will CBS with Barry Weiss, is this the new CBS? Because I'll be honest, they're trying to get Brett Baer on board to become the face of CBS. And if I'm Baer, that's like a wet dream, to be quite honest. Only because, look, he has a chance to be the new face that creates actual change. I mean, that's a big feather in your cap, and it brings instant credibility. Do you think this is CBS just temporarily, and the battle's just begun for that newsroom and the ideological move forward, or do you think this is going to stick?
No, it's like a branch in the river, right? It's going to stick against a rock and be stuck there for a little while, and then eventually go back down. So I give it to about 2027, 2028, late 2027, 2028, where they say, look, we need to get past the Trump era and we need to find a good Democrat to support. And you know what? Maybe their saving grace will be someone like Stephen A. Smith, who's probably more of a centrist Democrat, and they can. I saw the groan there, but I don't see any other centrist Democrat coming out. I mean, maybe Josh Shapiro, and maybe they'll start talking a little more. Sorry to keep making you groan, but maybe they'll get a little more, pro-American in their views and not pro-global citizenship, which is what they think. They think, it's not fair that we have 25% of the wealth and we're 5% of the world's population. So we've got to share with everyone. Let them come here. Look, my dad came here from India. He wanted to come to America. He didn't want to bring the rest of India with him. And that wasn't his goal. And I think that's a lot of people. They come here because America is America.
Right.
And it's the land of opportunity. So I'm sorry I'm getting off the tangent. But I think that's what drives a lot of these people. They say this is not fair. We share our wealth with everyone, and unfortunately, that means you got to share your wealth, according to their ideas. So
redistribution.
28.
Well, the reason I groaned is I've covered Stephen A. Smith for decades. Being sports was my job, and he is who he is. He's a hardcore leftist who is an opportunist. And I don't say that in a bad way. That's his world he lives in. You're either an opportunist or somebody's going to stab you in the back and take your spot and move up. But he's not a Democrat. He talks all this garbage, and then come November, cha-ching, Democrat. And Josh Shapiro, look at his voting record. Y'all need to look at his vote. There's a faction out there who wants Josh Shapiro to run for Senate. For senator to replace John Fetterman. John Fetterman, who votes 97% of the time with Democrats because he says one thing, they want to throw him off the reservation. And I literally mean reservation. And there's Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro, he who tried to sit there and play his attacker as a conservative a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, when he's actually a leftist who attacked him because he was Jew. Josh Shapiro, who's probably going to run for senator because he's going to realize they won't let me vie for the presidential ticket because I'm Jewish, because of the Palestinian movement growing and the Muslim movement growing in the Democrat Party. I'm not being a bigot here. I'm just telling you the movements that we've seen. Mamdani, for example, So look, we saw Brennan go full throttle, as G said. She was grilling Jeffries, and folks are now asking, is CBS getting real or just switching the target? I don't know. But then you've got Jasmine Crockett tossing out that ballroom story. It was viral. It was catchy. Totally off base and called out. And that's the wild part. Sometimes a fact check lands live, as we saw with Brennan. Sometimes it doesn't, as we saw with Caitlin. It was very nuanced. But by then, the Democrats' hope is that the story's already burning through cable news and social feeds. To the Democrats' detriment, Margaret Brennan, her story really caught fire and made Barry Weiss and CBS look good. And my final comment, and G, I'm going to ask you a final comment before I close this topic out, is Democrats had a meltdown. They melted down because Margaret Brennan asked legitimate questions. Think about that. They're angry and accusing her of being a far-right player simply for asking a legitimate question. But the bottom line, it's hard to trust what you see with these two outlets. Everyone's spinning, everyone's shouting, and the truth is fighting for airtime. Gee, real quick before we close the show out, your thought on the fact that the media was melting down because they were angry that Margaret Brennan asked him tough questions. That's what it boiled down to.
I mean, tough questions, yes, but really they were just challenging his narrative, right? So I don't even view them as tough questions. It's just like, well, look, you're spinning, and let me counterspin. And I think before she had Scott Bessent on, and afterwards she had Lindsey Graham on. So and she does that to them all the time. So I think there is this coddling that maybe a lot of Democrat leadership politicians are not used to. I've just been watching this show. It's on YouTube. It's from 2018 about the Clinton affairs. It's called The Clinton Affair. And, the party, or quote unquote, the party of hashtag Me Too and believe the women all the time and all that. When all these women are coming out against Bill Clinton, they were just calling them floozies and redneck hicks. And look at Monica Lewinsky. Like she's not taken seriously. And it's, what is this? Almost 30 years later. And it's because of the media trying to protect Bill Clinton. It doesn't, their narrative and their angle is always to protect their party, right? And I think it's like 96% of the staffers at CBS, ABC, CNN, and I think 100% at MSNBC, they're Democrats. They vote that way, they donate that way. So I think in the end, they're just not used to it. And it's like, well, look at how Fox News might treat a Democrat. That's what the other networks do to our side.
But Democrats are treated well at Fox News. That's what burns me up sometimes.
They are.
It's like Challenger. They don't sometimes.
Remember the Brett Baer interview with Kamala a year ago? Yeah. And she was like, how dare you question me? And then you could see her demeanor, just her eyes got a little more like beady. And, like,
and it's
how
happening.
Dare you question me?
It's happening. Kamala Harris was just questioned by an Englishwoman. I say Englishwoman because I assume she was probably overseas or somewhere. And she goes, the presenter, the interviewer asked her about, hey, Biden's frailty and all that. He didn't give you much time to run. And then she asked a question specifically on Biden. She went out for 30 seconds on Trump, and the interviewer came back. It's like, that's like a huge jump. You didn't answer my question. Here's the question. And so maybe this pushback is happening over and over. And that's our show, folks. But before we go, make sure you hit like or thumbs up and share this podcast. We need you to support us that way. And then bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. Follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media for more. Until next week, I'm William Del Pilar for the G-Man, and this has been Fired Up.